Hello, I'm Emma B. Perez, life design and career coach for teens and young adults. This Empower Your Teen YouTube channel is all about supporting parents. To learn how your high school or college age child can go from undecided to excited, click the link in the description box. To get even more support as a parent, just stick around by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. Okay, let's get to today's topic. Today we're talking with psychotherapist Tom Kersting. He's a sought-after speaker, author, and television personality. Not only has he been featured on popular talk shows, he's also hosted shows for National Geographic, Food Network, and even Oprah's Wellness Network. Let's see what he has for us today. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure.
Great. So one of the reasons why I'm so excited that you joined us for this event is you bring experience not only as a psychotherapist, but also as an educator in the classroom. So would you mind sharing your story with us? How did you, how did you end up in psychotherapy? How did you end up educating?
Yeah. So I'm actually not a teacher, but I am a counselor in a public high school. So it's kind of interesting, my story. So I had one goal in mind growing up as a kid. That was to be a Major League Baseball player.
Oh,
so
okay.
I was a good athlete. Yeah. So, in high school, it was different. My parents grew up in the Bronx. They didn't go to college. They got married when they were like 19, 20. So I didn't even know what college was. So I just played baseball. I was a good baseball player. Went to a competitive all boys Catholic high school. And then I kind of stumbled into college because of baseball and went to a small liberal arts college in upstate New York. Long story short, I was a criminal justice major. And then about sophomore year, towards the end of sophomore year, as a pitcher, baseball player, I all of a sudden lost the strike zone, could not throw strikes. So I went, the guy on my team said, why don't you go see a hypnotist? And I said, why don't you go kiss off? And I actually did. I went and saw a hypnotherapist for a couple of sessions, used visualization and meditation and imagery, and I couldn't believe the transformation that took place in my ability to pitch. So I took a psychology course as an elective and then fell in love with psychology, changed my major to psychology, went to graduate school, got a degree in counseling, started working at a high school almost 25 years ago, and then during my master's program found out I was eligible to get licensed as a professional psychotherapist, and then the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
so it's an interesting story.
Yeah, exactly. So at the time that you were a teen and you were in high school, I mean, how could you have imagined this?
I couldn't. I mean, I did every job. That's like where I work with so many teens. I tell people I probably counseled more teenagers than anyone on earth between working at a high school and my private practice where I'm at now, and I'm done for the evening. But I did as a teenager, I worked literally, if you name a job, I did it. I promise you that. So whatever it was, we were out working all the time, playing sports, having fun. And, and it's something that I try to encourage, today's teens to do, to be out and about, be active, enjoy life, work hard.
Yeah, exactly. Not only is it just, good for your health, but it's great for gaining lots of different experiences that you can use to start to figure things out. And I love to talk to people who have sort of that, where they kind of go in life, a career change or something like that, because I think a lot of times teens think that they have to pick the right thing right at 18 or there's going to be regret. This is something that I've heard a lot of parents say later. I don't want my kids to regret the choices they make right now.
It's so true. And, I actually had a young kid in here right before we got on the conversation. He's a freshman in high school. And, I said, what do you want to do? Do you have any idea what you want to do? And he's like, I actually do know what I want to do. I want to be a sportsman. I'm going to go into sports management. So, he probably doesn't even really know what that means. But most teenagers, particularly young ones, really don't actually know what they want to do, nor should they really know what they want to do. You kind of figure it out as you go along based on your experiences. I forget what the statistic is. I think it might even be something like 70% of college students change their major. I forget. I might be that may be an overreach, but it's an astronomical number. And for parents to say, "Oh, I hope my kid does," your kid's going to find their way if they're working hard every day. They're putting a lot of effort in. They're going to navigate their way upstream and figure out where it is that they have to be in life.
That's
It
great.
seems to work out.
Okay, so we don't need to have too much worry, right? There's time, they will find their way, right?
Yeah, and part of it too with a lot of parents with worry, it doesn't get our children anywhere. Number one, when we're constantly worried about our child, we want our children to, because that can become sort of contagious. Anxiety and worry, we feed off of one another. We want to take a different approach. Instead of worrying, get excited about what the possibilities are. So let's say your son or daughter, they want to go to college and they want to be a doctor, and then they realize that they hate biology and blood. Good. Now you can check that off your list, and maybe that's how you find your way to where you want to get. It's not necessarily, I'm going to be an accountant, and then you realize that you hate accounting, that you have failed. It's just now you could rule that out as something that you don't like and maybe you're not that good at until you do find what you like and what you're good at.
I love that. I love that because I hear, I've heard young people say, I have lots of different interests and I try this and it's not right and I try that. And then what they hear is pick something, just pick something. Why can't you pick anything? Or we start to worry that someone's just a wanderer in life because they're moving from one thing to another.
Yeah. Well, I think finding the balance, I always tell kids, if you're passionate about something, all right, pursue that. Like I have musicians that are talented musicians, and pursue that. Well, you know how hard it is to become a professional musician or singer. Da, da, da. So right off the bat, their mind is saying, this is hard. I shouldn't do that. I'm just going to become a teacher, or I'm going to become a lawyer. If you follow, and I truly believe this, I live by this. If you follow what you are passionate about, you will find success that is beyond anything comprehensible to you right now.
I love that. I love that. That's great. Okay, so what can parents do? So a lot of the parents that are with us this week are just really wanting to help their teens make some solid decision for their future. And so maybe these families have teens that are trying to pick the right school, the right degree program. Maybe some of them are trying to decide if college is even the right path. Maybe there's tech school, trade school, military, other options. What can parents do to help their teen make these decisions when they don't know what to pick?
So I think first and foremost, what parents need to do is you have to really listen to your kid a bit, and listen in a different way. Like sit down and hear out your child. I have another kid, that I was seeing, and all he wants to do is go in the military. Parents didn't want him to go into the military, but that's all he's wanted to do since he's a kid. Now he's going into the military. So, in college, that's a whole nother thing. I feel like college isn't what it used to be either.
Yeah.
It's gotten, I don't know if it's just gotten overblown and overinflated, the whole college thing. Because you could go out there, graduate high school, go to trade school, and become a plumber and electrician, and in 2 years you're going to be making more money, double the amount of money that a recent college graduate is making that has $100,000 in student loan debt. So that's another thing. Like if you're gonna, I really believe if you're gonna go to college, and major in something where there's no job market, is it worth that investment, or is it really an investment, or is it now an expense? So that's why, if you're going to go to college, you should. I do believe in going with what your passion is. But if there's no job market in that, then you're going to somehow have to figure out how to utilize your passions with a degree of some sort. But again, parents don't need to hit the panic button. Just let your kid. You want to guide your kids. But at the same time, you want to hear them, and don't put the kibosh on what their dreams or aspirations might be. Hear them a little bit, and if you're completely uncertain, it might be a good idea to let them go to a community college for a year or two, and you could save a tremendous amount of money doing that.
Yes, you can, for sure. Okay, so when you talk about listening to kids, this actually reminded me of something that I saw on your website that said children spend just 3 minutes a week in meaningful conversation with their parents. 3 minutes a week?
Well, it's actually parents spend 3.5 minutes per week in meaningful conversation with their children, and I cite that in my book. I wrote this popular book called Disconnected, which is about the impact of screen time on our children's lives. It goes in depth into the science and everything else. And part of it is when I'm out lecturing, I lecture all over the country. I do a section of my lecture, and I talk about this in the book. It's called Parenting from a Distance.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is if you and I, let's say you and I met in person right now, we decided to go to the restaurant down the road and have something to eat,
Mm-hmm.
and there were families in there, every single kid in that restaurant would be doing this. And so would most of the adults. And now under the roofs of homes all across America, this is what everybody's doing. So statistically, and I have it in my book cited with the research to back it, the average parent is spending just 3.5 minutes per week in meaningful conversation with their children
Wow.
per week. And that's because everybody's, tied up with their screens and so forth. And our children, the most important thing in their lives is developmentally is the relationship they have with their parents. So that really goes into the whole thing with my book and so forth about the fact that parents need to really, unplug and disconnect from the devices themselves and enforce that in the household and really begin the process of reconnecting with their family members.
Wow. Okay. So what to you is meaningful conversation?
Well, meaningful conversation is the family dinner table, believe it or not. The 5 minute car ride to school is very meaningful. Okay, it's very fertile ground. So it's just even the 5 minute just nuanced conversations over time are very, very meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the 3.5 minutes per week component, when you look at it from that perspective, is like meaningful being you're actually sitting, having eye contact with your child, talking about their day, talking about what's going on in their lives and so forth. But it doesn't have to just be sitting down at the dinner table. It could be anywhere. With our
Mm-hmm.
car rides back and forth from school and practice, we got to make sure that we put down the devices, and when we're in the presence of one another, we are actually communicating and talking with one another. And it doesn't have to be about anything that's necessarily bold and important, just regular conversations as human beings.
So when you have a teen, that can be hard to do.
Yeah, I have two of them. So my
No,
older, my older one, who is 16 years old, my son, I drive him to school on my way to work, and it's a 15-minute drive. His high school's we're like the furthest possible street away from his high school. It's a regional high school. It's 3 towns, and so he knows there's no phone or any of that when we're in the car. I do all the talking. He doesn't want to talk all that much because he's tired. It's early in the morning. I'm like, hey, man, you want to talk? No, I'm tired. So I just talk. It's like me, Mr. Blabbermouth. But he's getting, 180 times a year, he's getting an awful lot just hearing what I'm talking about. And whether we're talking about sports, we're talking about, the society and our lives and physical health and mental health and family and all that, that there's a lot to be said about that.
So when you are helping your teen make decisions for the future and you're listening to them, what happens if you don't really like what you're hearing?
Can you be more specific?
Well, it's kind of like you were saying with the teen that you were just talking to who wanted to do military his whole life, and his parents didn't really like the idea of military.
Yeah. We have to, we want, like I said, we want to guide and direct our kids, So like, for example, if I had, let's say one of my kids was quiet and had a little bit of, social anxiety and so forth, and was a good student and said, I really just want to commute to college and just go back and forth. The idea of being out on my own is just, you would have to think about that a little bit differently, right? So number one, would that be in the benefit of the kid, or would it be to his disadvantage? Would it be the benefit to send your child away to school so they get their feet wet and they get comfortable being uncomfortable, which is the secret sauce to success? So you really have to kind of balance that out. But if your kid drops a zinger on you and says, I want to, I'm a good student, and let's say everybody went to college, and he just wants to go, fire a machine gun. Maybe he's playing too many video games. I have no idea. But if it's somebody that just dutifully wants to wants to join the military because they have so much pride in our country and so forth, then I would tell parents to explore that, to have the conversation with your child, maybe look a little bit more in depth to that. There's a lot of good stuff that can come out of that. Free education, you learn a specific skill and career while you're in the military. We just have to be more open to understanding where our kids are coming from.
Great, thank you. So if, let's say there's a parent who they have a teen who is engaging in conversation, but they really just don't know what they want to do. They don't know how to decide what they want to do or how to figure it out. Do you have any advice on things that parents can do to help their kids figure out what they want?
Yeah, so don't fret over it, number one. If you're a parent and your kid doesn't know what they want to do, good. That's the way they should be. Because what we want them to do is be good, happy kids right now. If our kids are 15 or 16, even 17, they don't know what they want to do, good. Let them be teenagers now. They'll figure out what they want to do later on. Let them go to college if they decide to do that and be undecided until they figure out their major. Let them take their electives. We don't want to pressure our kids into making a lifelong commitment right now, today, that, all right, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a CPA, I'm going to be a doctor, because they may likely be going down the wrong path. Maybe they want to be a YouTuber. No, I'm kidding. So I saw something. There was a recent article I saw a couple of weeks ago where kids were polled their top 10 careers, and social media influencer was higher than astronaut and doctor.
Wow. Because that's what they see all the time, right?
That's
what they
right.
know.
That's right. It drives me crazy. It's just unrealistic. So get your kids off of those screens, get those iPads away from them, get them out of the bedroom and get them in your presence and have good, deep, meaningful conversations with them. But again, back to your question. Yeah, don't panic over it. They're not really supposed to know what they want to do. It's very rare that you find a kid that is born, comes out of the womb and wants to be a doctor or an astronaut or something like that. That's rare.
And even that can change, right?
Sure. I'm always changing. I got a million different professions. I'm a school counselor. I'm a licensed psychotherapist. I'm a lecturer. I'm an author. And there's probably other things that are going to come my way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's what's good about life.
Yep. All right. This is such great information. I want to talk about how parents can get more information from you. How can they connect with you?
So you can connect if you go to my website. It's www.tomkersting.com. So I give a lot of advice, a lot of parenting advice. I mean, the main emphasis is really around the topic of my book. The book is called Disconnected. It is now out of print. So I self-published that book, and the book sold so many copies that it went to auction, and a major publisher bought the book, and a new version of that's coming out in June. It's going to be a slightly different title, a new cover, and it'll have national distribution all over. So the website is largely leans towards that, but that's not all I focus on. I deal with everything related to human psychology, relationships, family, parenting, you name it. So it's tomkersting.com.
Tomkersting.com. And thank you so much for this insight. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.